ahead, Frank.
Remind me of what I was talking about.
Yannabale, you were saying? Like you were saying the something to follow, go ahead, Frank.
No, the Gnostic texts say this. The Gnostic texts say this. I believe it's the Apocryphon of Adam.
Yes.
That's what it's called. Or the Apocryphon of John. One or the other. It talks about, okay, Yannabale created man from the ground. That is true. All right. Well, he couldn't figure out how to make his creation come to life. All right. There was also one story says that 3 aeons came down and told him to blow breath into Adam, and then Adam was alive. There's another one that also talks about he blew breath into Adam, but Adam came alive, but he couldn't walk. He crawled on the floor.
Oh, wow.
All right, and then they left the creature in the room, and then Sophia came down and blew her breath into him, and he rolled. Oh, no, actually, it says she told him to rise to his feet, and he rose up to his feet, and he called her the mother of all life.
Oh, I love that.
And from that point on, Yannabale feared Adam because Adam was smarter and more intelligent than he was. Because he was directly created, he was directly from his mother. Because Sophia, in the story, is Yannabale's mother.
Could you describe from the 3 spears, the crown, and then the left and the right, the left being Hagma or Sophia, the right being the understanding that we were talking about as almost like a Horus thought, but maybe that's, don't go there if you don't want to. Could you explain?
These are like the top 3 spears. I'm only talking about the top 3 spears. The crown, the first right hand, and the first left hand. So it's kind of like a pyramid.
I hear you.
The first top of it. All right. It's the crown. I would say we call Sophia wisdom, but in the myths, it really says she was created directly from the first life, from the all. All right. But this realm was used with her power to create. Because the creator was directly her child. Which you see that a lot in a lot of the images and statues across the world. A mother with their child, with the child sitting on it, which is, like you said, Horus and Isis. You made that comparison.
Right.
There's a lot of comparisons across the world. That
the mother of Krishna.
Read through a lot of texts, you'll find strings that you could pull through everywhere. Kind of get what I mean?
Absolutely. This is. I hear that. I hear our kitty saying something. So the goddess is with us. How are you doing, baby? Yeah, wow. Do you want to have some more food? She said yes. I will get you. Give me a moment. I'm gonna pause and give Kitty some food. I'll be right back. I'll bring you with. Today I'm back from giving food to our kitty. So please go. You're gonna explain this in a Christian sense?
I will explain it in a couple senses.
Sure, Frank, go ahead.
Like, you would say, like, for instance, Sophia was created from the direct sphere of all things, the all, the consciousness itself. So she would probably be, a lot of people dispute, I would kind of dispute my own self, but because I can, which that sphere right there would be Sophia, and then you would have, like, the logos would be the next sphere, which would be wisdom, which would be the wisdom of before creation, which is the wisdom, and then
which
you
is
have
the word, which is the word.
The word
logos is, and that's another way of saying Jesus too. Go ahead, friend.
You could also say Jesus is the heart chakra, the heart, the center of, when you have all your chakras working correctly, your heart will speak directly to you. That would be considered the logos in in a lot of traditions. And from my understanding from some of the stuff that I've seen about it and read about it, that's the logos is the heart.
The logos is the heart. The word is the
child.
heart.
My bad. The heart is let me correct myself. The heart is the child, the divine child.
I see.
So it's kind of hard to place, but you would say Jesus would probably be the logos.
Right.
Which would be the first or the second spirit. He would either be understanding, where he brings understanding of the lights, because that's what it is. Understanding is the logos that understands what the light is emulating.
So it's like the right hand of the Father, the right hand of the All, is this understanding that you could say is logos, that you could say is Christ, that you could say is that part of the highest three spheres of what we're talking about, which is the Kabbalah tree, the tree of life.
Yeah. I would just say the tree of life because I don't want to offend the Kabbalistics in any way.
No. I think everybody, this is a religious channel. We all can talk about anything. It's all great.
Yeah, I know.
But
a lot of esoteric traditions run through that, and that is like that was created in the 12th century or maybe earlier. You know, There's also a deeper version where they talk about Enoch and everything else like that, but I don't want to get into all of that right now.
No,
that's a whole story.
Is there anything?
That's a whole big story.
Well, if we can conclude just your thought right now, I'll put this out. It's just a small little taste for people to have as we continue to do our series of our podcast, the Mystic Podcast, which Holy Rollers Mystic Podcast, which isn't only about the Gospel of Thomas, but also is about lots of other things.
But yeah, because as being in the Gnostic tradition, we do carry the tree of life, which is the Kabbalistic tree.
Lovely.
And that I don't want to offend nobody, but if you look into Gnostic tradition, they live by the tree of life.
And the tree of life, of course, is also go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, the tree of life. A lot of folks from the church have come from the tradition of Jehovah's Witness originally in their lives. And a lot of what I remember and am very grateful to their witness over the centuries and the years they've been around. Obviously, they fought, they suffered under Holocaust like Jewish people and communist people and gay people. They had their own triangle. There's a purple triangle that was just for Jehovah's Witness. But what they really talk about is that Jesus was nailed to a tree, not a cross. And while that seems like kind of a beside the point kind of thing to think, for some people who don't care, it actually connects it to the tree of life and to all the traditions of humanity, from paganism, ancient Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, the Bodhi tree of the Buddha sat under to get enlightenment. And it's really mentioned in Exodus 15. There's a whole section that the folks who wrote the Bible decided to put in there about Mara as a bitter river, a direct reference to Buddhist thought, and that the tree, the Bodhi tree, and the tree of God would make it sweet, make life and the river of life in Samsara sweet. So all that to say, thank you for keep bringing about the tree. Keep going with that as you were thinking, and then we'll rock.
Well, the only thing I don't really agree on the chronicle version of it is the sacrifice of Jesus. Like, for instance, he condemns sacrifice.
Right.
Like, he says, do not do it. The ones you sacrifice to are not gods. But yeah,
I think
all over the world, we believe in, well, I don't believe in it. A lot of people believe in the sacrifice of Jesus Christ.
The whole idea of penal substitution is like the cornerstone of Protestant and Catholic thought in this country, and that's when the white imperialists came and destroyed the continent and continued to dominate and to continue to have the prison industry and the war and all this shit has come from that. And they believe in this doctrine called penal substitution, that literally an innocent man had to die for everybody. I think that's the most horrible and obscene thought. However, the story itself can be used. I think the Jehovah's Witness and what they thought about was to try to put it together consciously or unconsciously into the hands of older traditions than Christianity, like the idea of connecting them to the earth. Even though go ahead.
I would sum it up as they're Torah observing Christians.
That's
they
believe
more into the Jewish tradition than they really do in the Christian tradition.
Sure.
You kind of get where I'm going there?
Well, yeah, and just to hear what I've heard from people from Mr. Farrakhan has said this, and other people in the Nation of Islam, and other people have said that Master Farad, who gave the wisdom to Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, also talked to the Watchtower Society, after which it became the Jehovah's Witness. And then Master Farad went off and helped people in Fiji before we ceased to know where he was directly. But of course, he's everywhere and everything. But I really think, go ahead.
And the funny thing is they believe in the same God.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they just have different ways of saying it because they're in different languages.
And that is part of the thing of like the Tower of Babel story in the Genesis, where God gave us languages to kind of challenge us and to keep us from becoming a threat against Him and the gods and all that power. That we would have to solve our problem of language, which is a different way of saying what Pentecost gives us. Recently at Pentecost, the idea that all the different languages can get united and can be learned. If we learn all these languages, then maybe we can challenge that. I
think our true language. I believe we can speak to each other without saying a word.
I believe that too.
And I believe that's the one true language.
I believe that too.
Because we're not speaking anything, but we can feel from each other. You kind of get what I mean?
Totally, and I've experienced that with people and with animals and with even objects and like plants and stuff and big gardening and stuff, the chickens and stuff. I've definitely had relationships with animals very unique to them that are not pretty much we've never talked in any language, but we definitely communicated.
Because believe me, I've met a couple people that are rivals to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are you run across out here Freemasons.
I hear you.
All right. And Freemasonry is to me, like, they control a lot of things. I'm not saying nothing bad about them because everybody's got their own religion. I'm just going to say this. And I don't want to offend them.
Well, you know what it is, too? I mean, I'll just say really quickly that, I believe any path can be good if it's a good path, but you can use any path, even a good path, in a wrong way. And that some people at 300th level, whatever they are, aren't the same as the people with third degrees doing nice things in the community as a lot of Masons do. But that being said, say what you're going to say, friend. There are some racism in Masonry. There's racism and other things.
Yeah, well, it's hard to talk about. Well, a lot of people bash at them.
Yeah.
But their society is very sophisticated, and I ain't gonna lie about it. All right? Their society is very sophisticated, but, like, if you don't go nowhere, it's like, in life, like, they control countries and shit. Like,
well, it's
they're
true.
a very powerful society.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
They're part of like the global elites. So
I think there's a lot of older. Go ahead, friend.
It's like this: the global elites, what they do is they throw these things at you because they don't care. They can give you millions of dollars. They monopolize everything. So if all that money's coming back, it's like playing Monopoly and you own the biggest and the best property, that everybody else got the medium, low and mid-range ones, and you have the good ones. Everybody's got a cross, say like Marvin Gardens, the yellow and the green right there.
Right,
that fucking corner right there, bro, you make more money off that corner than you make off Boardwalk and Park Place. By controlling that corner, you control the entire game.
Nice to know how that would work. That's it. But of course, in the real world, not so-called world, that is a bigger game, and they have. Let's put it this way. There's. Go ahead, friend.
So we're like little ants in an ant farm that they're just toying with.
But I think it's not just simply one.
It's not just that, because they do a lot of other things. Believe me. all right, religion is just the first level of everything.
That's right.
All right, that's where they want to keep you. They don't want you to know nothing else.
And that's the absolute
That's
truth.
probably the best way I could put it.
That is, if I had a problem with Masonic thought, I have two good friends who are Masons actually, and we've had arguments, we have differences. One of the things that comes up is this concept of the allegory. They're very interested in looking at something and then having an allegory of it to teach you what to do with the first something, which, you know, is fine, but it's also kind of deliberately lying in a way, because you're commanding things to fit into a scheme. And you know, the history of the sect, while having a lot of good, you know, Democrat and Republican, all kinds of people have been, but really the thought is, does man have more power than God? And I think that that really is why Masons and Muslims have historically had trouble with each other in different countries, because the Mason is kind of the mindset of the West in that way, and the Muslim doesn't want to overdo God, doesn't want to be, wants to fuse how you are talk about, like the Gnosticism is how you become one with God rather than try to dominate God. It's to say you must fit into my allegory or it doesn't, you know. And I say I got two really good friends, one I grew up with who's a Mason. I'm not saying nothing against Mason. I know you're not either, but there are certainly ways in which, yeah, go ahead.
But what I read and everything, their whole thing is okay, the laws of attraction is once again plays and play. Alright. The laws of attraction also play with Gnosticism and stuff.
That's right.
Alright, because like that's how you create things in the universe. Well, they teach you how to create things. So they teach you how to create your own reality.
Ordo
so
Chaos
what you're really doing
degrees.
is what the reason why you're arguing with them is because you're having a spiritual war with them.
Interesting.
Because you might be on both sides of the spectrum and he's only on one.
Right.
Or you guys might be just as powerful as each other and you guys are rivals to each other.
Oh. Well,
you kind of get where I'm going there?
I can see it.
Because
I can see it.
The Solomonic dynasty talks about sorcery. All right, how Solomon's ring itself was said to bind demons.
Right.
The three magi that went to visit Jesus. Magi, the word magi is mage.
Yes.
So that's what I mean. Like that's part of who we are. And people will, whether we can manifest good things too. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're seeing it in the world right now. Like, the world is starting to wake up.
Definitely.
Because the right people are starting to manifest and get out there. And we're becoming more aware of what's going on in the world.
Definitely.
All right, and the world's becoming more aware of all of us.
Absolutely. And we're becoming aware of each other in this way that's even in the recent years, it's more lately than ever. I mean, look at the No Kings protests. Speaking of, you know, groups of powerful
That's one
people.
of the biggest ones we've seen in a long time.
It's been like 12 million people, they estimate, and maybe even more people around the country just came out. And I think that that's really a kind of a powerful thought.
Well, because this country is supposedly built on the people.
And that's the thing. I mean,
we're telling you, don't send them back. You know, they've been here for so long.
Right.
Why don't you help them out? Why don't you help them get their papers? Why don't you? Because personally, I believe they're detaining them and they're not even sending them back. So basically, they're putting them in a refugee camp.
Yeah. They're making private money out of that shit, too. Both Geo Group and Core Civic are two private prison industries. We have something on the church thing, the For Those Who Rule Us, for people should watch it. And it's a couple of videos about it. And they literally are taking people off the street for like because they want to have an industry of prisoners. That's the last way they can do it. They make an industry out of storing people. Like they make everybody unstable in where they live, so that they can constantly have people having to pay for storage. Well, it's the same shit with like people. They store people. I mean, they store people. You know, I mean, I'm being very cynical on purpose, but
well, just if you think about it, it's a number. They're a number, and they're cash to the government.
Well, you know, any of the secret societies, old or new, that have a certain kind of affinity with power, and that's what you're saying. Because like, there's Masons who died in the Holocaust, alongside everybody else because they hated Masons. But at the same time, there's people, presidents who've been Mason who've done terrible shit. It's do you have the power to do good or bad? And I think in the real concept of Masonry in the 33 degrees, you do have the power then to do good or bad. You're very godlike yourself. Then you should do good, but there's no law that says you should. And so of course people, whatever their source of magic and thought, if they are rich people and white supremacist people, they're gonna like do white supremacist things, and they've been doing that too well for like for 500 years.
There is a law. It's called cause and effect.
Yes, sir. That's right.
So when you cause something, there's always going to be an effect.
That's right.
So that's the law that falls under. You go out and do bad shit's basically, it says you go out there and do bad. The one you truly love is going to treat you like you treated that person. And you're not going to be able to help yourself because you're going to feel just like that person felt. That's how your karma comes back.
I hear you.
It's not through everything else in the world. It's through the one you love the most. Is the only one that can reach in there and rip that heart out. So that's what karmic law says. Because nothing else is really going to affect you but that person.
Blessed be.
And karmic law might just have you fall in love with that person just so you can learn that lesson.
Well, that's really the story, and I think if you really can find the way to detach but still be enjoying everything, which is the Buddhist thought, really.
Yep, and I love that thought. I believe every religion has their own thought. Go ahead.
I think
it's its right thought.
Thank you, friend, for that. That thought is, if you come to the non-self and you let yourself be free to age into death as you do good things, and just don't worry about anything besides the things. Our conversation right now, we're both kind of in the spirit. We've been in the spirit, and we don't plan what we're saying, but it has a certain thing that by the end of the video, people feel what we've said about what we're going to say about. But what I think that to conclude really, all the things that this story of this continent, this civilization for thousands of years as well as hundreds, is coming to a conclusion now, and we're all starting to get the spirit coming back, God maybe not being an enemy to Goddess Earth embracing God, and then we're all kind of being reborn in that together, you and I together, from what you've told me and I've learned. Hopefully things I've said will help you too and other people. And we're all kind of being helped by this thing. There's things I wanted to talk about, just over the vacation that you've brought up to talk to me about. It's just really beautiful how that, as you said, and maybe we're aware of, the law, cause and effects do have an actual palpable result you can see. God's real, and so is life, and it's beautiful that way.